I woke up to find half my hair gone. My own husband let his mom into our house to destroy me while I slept. And the reason? You won't believe it. So, I'm still processing this, but I need to get it off my chest. Last night, I woke up and realized someone had butchered my hair. One side is a jagged pixie cut, and the other side hangs awkwardly past my shoulder. At first, I thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I sleepwalked or something, but no. I confronted my husband, Tim, because he's been acting weird lately, but he denied it. Then he drops this bombshell. My mom, she might have done it. Apparently, my MIL, let's call her Diane, is convinced I've been cheating on Tim. Why? Because last week she saw me having lunch with a coworker. For the record, the coworker, Kyle, is gay, and we were literally talking about work. But Diane decided I must be having an affair, and instead of, talking to me or Tim, she broke into our house in the middle of the night with scissors and went full Edward Scissorhands on my hair. This morning, I confronted her. At first, she played innocent, but when I pressed her, she literally said, "Well, maybe now you'll think twice before humiliating my son." I was fuming. I told her Kyle isn't even into women, but she just rolled her eyes and said something like, "That's what they all say." I didn't even know how to respond to that level of delusion. Tim is horrified and apologetic, but I'm struggling here. This woman violated my personal space, destroyed my hair, and acted like she was in the right. I want to go no contact with her, but Tim is stuck between me and his mom, and I feel like this is going to be a huge blow-up in our marriage. Any advice? Because I'm honestly at a loss here. Update. 1. After the conversation we had with Diane this morning, I noticed my husband, Tim, was acting weird. At first, I thought it was just guilt about standing up to his mom, but it felt like more than that. He's been avoiding eye contact and getting defensive when I bring up what happened. Earlier, I couldn't take it anymore, so I sat him down and told him he needed to be 100% honest with me about everything. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Apparently, Diane didn't come up with the haircut idea on her own. Tim admitted that he knew about it ahead of time and even helped her. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. He said he truly thought I was cheating on him with Kyle, my gay coworker, because Diane had convinced him that there was too much evidence to ignore. When she suggested cutting my hair as some kind of weird punishment, he didn't stop her. In fact, he let her into our house that night while I was sleeping. Tim said he didn't want to confront me directly because he wasn't ready for the truth. So instead, he let his mother do this insane thing to me, thinking it would force me to come clean. Afterward, when I didn't admit to cheating, he started to realize he might have been wrong, but by then, he didn't know how to tell me what he'd done. He kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I was just confused, but I honestly don't know how to process this." This wasn't just Diane acting like a lunatic. This was both of them, and my own husband betrayed me in one of the most humiliating ways possible. I packed a bag and I'm staying with a friend tonight, and while I figure out what to do, I don't know if I can ever trust him again after this. It's not just the haircut. It's the fact that he didn't talk to me, believed the worst about me without any proof, and actively participated in something so cruel and violating. As for Diane, she's officially dead to me. I've already told Tim that I don't want her in my life ever again, regardless of what happens between us. Right now, I'm torn. Part of me wants to file a police report on both of them for what they did, but I'm scared of how messy it will get. Another part of me just wants to cut ties and move on, but that feels like letting them off too easy. I don't know what my next step is, but I do know this. I deserve better than this. Thank you to everyone who has supported me through this. Your comments and advice have meant the world, and I'm truly grateful for the kindness and understanding. It's helping me find the strength to figure out what comes next. Update 2. Okay, so buckle up because this whole situation just went from terrible to absolutely off the rails insane. After spending a night at my friend's house trying to process everything, I decided that I needed to get some clarity before making any big decisions. I wanted answers, and more than anything, I wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my mind here. First, I called Tim to tell him we needed to talk, and I wanted him to meet me at a public place. I'm not saying I thought he'd do something crazy, but after the whole, "I let my mom butcher your hair" thing, I'm not taking any chances. He agreed, sounding all sad and apologetic, but I was in no mood for his guilt trip. We met at a coffee shop, and I told him straight up that I needed to know everything. No more half-truths, no more excuses. Here's where things get even worse. Tim admitted that Diane has been meddling in our marriage for months. She's been telling him that I'm too independent and that it's only a matter of time before I leave him for someone else. Apparently, she's been planting little seeds of doubt in his head, saying things like, "She's always working late," or "She's always texting someone," which, by the way, is usually him or my group chat with my friends. Tim, instead of, I don't know, trusting his wife, started to believe her. He confessed that the whole thing with Kyle was like the tipping point for him. Diane had seen us at lunch and decided to go full detective mode, stalking my social media and even driving by my workplace to keep an eye on me. When she couldn't find anything incriminating, she just made it up. She told Tim that she saw Kyle and me holding hands, which, for the record, never happened. Tim believed her because, in his words, why would my mom lie about something like that? Insert massive eye roll here. I asked him why he didn't just talk to me if he was feeling insecure or suspicious, and his answer made me want to scream. He said he didn't want to accuse me without proof, so he let Diane handle it. That's when she came up with the humiliation will teach her plan. Tim claimed he thought it was just going to be a scare tactic and didn't realize she'd actually cut my hair. Honestly, I'm not sure if I believe him, and even if that's true, it's still unforgivable. I told him I needed space and didn't want to see or talk to him for a while. He begged me to come home, saying he'd cut off contact with Diane and go to therapy, but I wasn't ready to make any decisions. Trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight, and right now, I don't even know if I want to try. Here's where things took a turn I did not see coming. While all this was happening, I decided to call Kyle and fill him in. He's one of my closest friends, and I wanted him to know what had been going on in case Diane's craziness escalated. When I told him everything, he was shocked, but also said, "There's something you need to know." Kyle told me that about a week before the haircut incident, Diane showed up at his office. She'd somehow figured out where he works, which is honestly terrifying, and confronted him in the lobby. According to Kyle, she accused him of stealing me from her son and demanded that he stay away from me. Kyle, being the absolute legend that he is, told her off and said she was being ridiculous. He thought that was the end of it, but now we know it was just the beginning. I asked Kyle if he'd be willing to write down everything that happened in case I decided to file a police report or get a restraining order, and he said absolutely. He also suggested that I check our house for cameras or anything Diane might have planted because, at this point, nothing would surprise him. So I went back to the house while Tim was at work and started looking around. I didn't find any cameras, but I did find something almost as bad: a notebook hidden in the guest room closet. It was Diane's, and it was filled with what can only be described as her notes on me. She'd been keeping tabs on my schedule, writing down when I left the house, when I came home, and even what I was wearing. There were pages of paranoid ramblings about how I was manipulating Tim and how she needed to save him from me. The worst part? There was a section where she outlined the haircut plan in detail. She'd written things like, make sure she's asleep, take enough off to make it noticeable, and this will teach her not to mess with my family. It was chilling to read, and I felt like I needed to take a shower just to get rid of the gross, violated feeling it gave me. And I took photos of the notebook and then called a lawyer. I'm not playing around anymore. This isn't just some petty family drama. This is full-on harassment and possibly stalking. The lawyer told me I have grounds to file a restraining order against Diane and potentially take legal action against both her and Tim for what happened. I'm seriously considering it because I refuse to let them get away with this. As of now, I'm staying with my friend indefinitely. Tim has been texting and calling nonstop, alternating between apologies and begging me to come back. Diane, meanwhile, has been posting vague, passive-aggressive things on Facebook about loyalty and how some people don't appreciate family. A few of Tim's relatives have reached out to me, saying I'm overreacting and need to forgive Diane because she's just trying to protect her son. I've blocked all of them. Right now, my focus is on taking care of myself and figuring out what's next. I don't know if my marriage can survive this, but even if it doesn't, I'll be okay. I'm done letting other people dictate my life or make me feel like I'm the one in the wrong here. Diane messed with the wrong person, and I'm not backing down. To everyone who's been supporting me and sharing advice, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've helped me stay grounded and reminded me that I'm not crazy for standing up for myself. I'll update again if anything major happens, but for now, I'm focusing on getting my life back on track. Update 3. All right, this will probably be the final update because I think I've reached the end of the road with this whole mess. Things have escalated in ways I didn't expect, but I'm feeling a lot more clear-headed about everything now. After finding Diane's notebook and consulting with my lawyer, I decided it was time to make some moves. First, I officially filed for a restraining order against Diane. I brought the photos of her notebook, the messages she'd sent Tim, and even the confrontation Kyle had with her at his office. The lawyer was confident that we had a strong case, and honestly, it felt so empowering to take that step. I was done playing defense. If she wanted a war, she was going to lose. Once the restraining order was in motion, I had another conversation with Tim. I told him point blank that I couldn't see a way forward for us as a couple. I explained that his betrayal, his lack of trust, and his willingness to let his mom's toxic behavior dictate his actions were deal breakers for me. He tried to argue, saying he'd been manipulated by Diane and that he was willing to do whatever it took to fix things, but it felt too little, too late. I told him I was filing for divorce. Tim was devastated. He started crying in the middle of our conversation, saying he'd been a fool to let Diane get in his head. While part of me felt bad for him, the larger part of me was just done. I told him I hoped he could work on himself and figure out why he allowed someone else to control his life, but I couldn't be part of that journey anymore. He asked if we could go to couples therapy or at least take a trial separation instead of jumping straight to divorce, but I said no. I needed a clean break. Staying married to him, even temporarily, felt like staying tethered to Diane, and I couldn't do that. Meanwhile, Diane's reaction to the restraining order was exactly what you'd expect from someone as unhinged as she is. She's been calling Tim nonstop, accusing me of tearing the family apart, and even suggesting that I'm trying to ruin her life. Pot, meet kettle. She's also been spreading lies to anyone who will listen, claiming that I've been abusive to Tim, and that the restraining order is just me being vindictive. Luckily, most people in Tim's family seem to see through her nonsense, especially after I showed them the evidence I'd collected. A few of them have even apologized to me for not stepping in sooner when they saw how controlling Diane was. I've been staying with my friend this whole time, but I finally decided to move into my own place. It's not huge or fancy, but it's mine, and it feels like a fresh start. Moving day was emotional, not because I was sad about leaving Tim, but because I realized how much I'd been holding myself back in that relationship. I'd gotten so used to making compromises to keep the peace that I forgot what it felt like to prioritize my own happiness. Setting up my new space felt like reclaiming a part of myself that I'd lost along the way. Here's the plot twist I didn't see coming. After I moved out, Tim's dad reached out to me. I've always had a decent relationship with him. He's pretty quiet and usually stays out of the drama, but he's always been kind to me. He told me that he'd finally had enough of Diane's antics and was filing for divorce himself. Apparently, my situation was the wake-up call he needed to see just how toxic she'd become. He apologized for not stepping in sooner and said he regretted letting Diane's behavior go unchecked for so long. I was shocked, but also a little relieved. It's good to know that someone else sees how messed up this all is. As for Kyle, he's been my rock through all of this. We've been joking that we should get matching Survivor of Diane tattoos, but honestly, I might actually do it. He's been helping me navigate everything, and his sense of humor has been a lifesaver. Diane tried to contact him again after the restraining order was filed, but he shut her down so hard that I almost felt bad for her. Almost. So where am I now? I'm focusing on rebuilding my life and figuring out what comes next. I've started going to therapy to work through the trauma of everything that's happened. It's been hard, but it's also been eye-opening. I've realized that I'd been tolerating so much less than I deserve, not just from Tim and Diane, but in other areas of my life too. Therapy has been helping me set boundaries and recognize my own worth, and honestly, I feel like I'm finally on the right path. I'm also considering taking legal action against Diane for the haircut incident. My lawyer says I have a strong case for damages, especially given the evidence from her notebook. Part of me wants to just move on and leave it in the past, but another part of me feels like holding her accountable is the right thing to do. I'm still weighing my options on that one. Tim and I haven't spoken much since I told him about the divorce. He's still been texting and calling occasionally, but I've been keeping my responses short and to the point. I'm not interested in rehashing everything or giving him false hope. Maybe someday we'll be able to have a civil conversation, but right now, I need distance. To everyone who's been following this saga and offering advice and support, thank you. Seriously, I don't think I could have gotten through this without the kind words and validation from so many of you. It's been a roller coaster, but I'm finally starting to feel like I'm on solid ground again. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that you can't control what other people do, but you can control how you respond. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm responding in a way that's true to myself. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Moving forward, cutting ties, and making my own happiness a priority. Diane might have tried to break me, but all she did was make me stronger. And honestly, that feels pretty damn good.